What cheer, y'all? Well, let's continue onward by looking at a very interesting horse to me, American Promise. He is trained by the coach, D. Wayne Lucas, and winner of the Virginia Derby. And this is a horse that seems to be coming into his own at just the right time. The thing that's always been most intriguing to me, just as a side note, is the fact that he is still a 2-year-old. And he was born on May 1st, so he will literally be a newly minted 3-year-old on Saturday for the Derby. So of 2 days as a 3-year-old. So if you consider that and what he's done so far, that's a pretty good indication that there's something here. Take a look at the pedigree. Certainly being by Triple Crown winner Justify helps the cause, and I know the coach lately has been really high on the Justifies. He had Just Steel last year as an example. Tapella underneath is the dam sire is Tappet. So again, added stamina there. Tapella herself didn't really breed a whole lot of it, and there aren't strong stamina influences here, but enough, I think, from Tappet that I don't think a 1.25 miles is going to be an issue. Looking at the Conduit Mare profile, you do see solid and professional influences on the bottom, and it is a little skewed towards stamina, 12 to 13. And the triads are interesting in that it's either the speed influences, the brilliant and intermediate, or the solid, professional, and classic late. So 18, 13, and 19. So the middle numbers there, which represents the intermediate, classic, and solid, is a little light. So it's an interesting pedigree from that perspective. It's the dual ends of the spectrum, I would say. But all in all, I don't think we have it. I think American Promise is going to get the distance. I'm not worried about that. Take a look at the running lines. And one of the things that strikes me as a big advantage is this one's going to fire fresh. How often do you see a D. Wayne Lucas horse who's actually had a break between starts? And that, to me, I think would signal that the coach is pretty high on this one. You look here, and it did take him a while to break his maiden, but again, a 2-year-old. A 2-year-old, he's probably, he just turned 2 when he hit Saratoga. And I remember looking at his pedigree, being on that first debut maiden, that I was kind of high on that horse, and but obviously needed a little development. And you do see that you look at those maiden efforts, and there was some steady progression. Until he put it all together in that maiden win in the slop at Oaklawn. But we know he can run on dirt fine, dry. So I don't think it's a big. I don't think that's anything that we. Certainly, if it does rain on Derby Day, you maybe can knock him up a spot if you want. But once he's moving into stakes company. One of the things that, in retrospect, when I would handicap the races after seeing a couple of the maiden efforts. Once I got to the Southwest, I was like, he seems to do the same thing every time. Is that he gets up amongst the leaders and then he falls back, as if to say he was outclassed a little bit. The Southwest Stakes in particular, you see, he tried to make a move on Speed King, and he couldn't sustain it, and he fell back. You move to the Risen Star, same thing. Tried to make a move, got up amongst the leaders, fell back. But in retrospect, my first impression was he's just being outclassed. He's just not good enough. He can't handle the better horses. But you couple that with the fact that he's still a 2-year-old, and you have to give him more credit, I think, than less. Because he's younger than the others. He's not as physically developed, even though he's a big horse. And he's a really nice-looking colt. But physically, he's not as ahead as some of the others. So then you look at the Southwest, and you see that late fraction of 65. The Risen Star, you see the late fraction of 71 with essentially the same early pace fractions, and you start to see a horse who's maybe getting a little better. And then, of course, in the Virginia Derby, he put it all together and ran a huge race. Now, there are a couple things about it. We know he didn't really beat very much. And, Render Judgment, who really just hasn't, he's a second-tier horse by Kenny McPeek's own admission, I might add. But it was the way he put it together. He stayed up amongst what was a hot pace, 45 and 108, and then had enough left in the tank to draw off. You see the early pace fractions for all three of his stakes races are roughly the same. The late fraction is the one that's getting better. So to me, that signals a horse that is progressing regardless of the fact that the Virginia Derby was run around one turn. I mean, after he did set the track record. So, that you can't sneeze at that a whole lot. So, this is a horse that I really, I think is very, very interesting when you consider a lot of the early runners, say for Rodriguez, Citizen Bull, East Avenue, they're kind of shaky. Maybe that's, tactically American Promise, if you can get the trip and linger off of him, he's a potential factor in the race. Is that it's a little alarming that 105 Brisnet figure is significantly higher than his prior efforts. But, so it has you've got a dual issue there. There's a potential regression, but also it could signal that this horse is really coming into his own at just the right time. You look at the work tab, and since the Virginia Derby, look what he's doing. Just banging out 5 furlong work after another. I believe he worked 7 furlongs yesterday. I consider that to be a very good sign. He's going to have plenty of bottom coming into the Derby, and he's firing fresh. So to me, this is a very promising horse for the Derby, pardon the pun. So we'll take a first take. Progression is a big positive. He's going to be firing fresh. That's also, I think, a big positive. And he seems to be physically maturing. He's getting it together at the right time. And I think the coach has noted that, and that's why he sat him out. The coach loves to run his horses. And, you would have thought maybe he would have put another one into him. Even a Lexington is just sort of a run around the track before the Derby. But keeping him on the sidelines, I think, is a good omen to me, knowing what the coach normally does with his 3-year-olds. The negatives, best effort was around one turn. If the pace is going to be quick, with Admire Daytona in there, the Japanese, they've been doing that the last few years, and they've been setting really hot fractions that may burn him out if he's a little too close to it. And then, of course, working out a trip. We don't know what his post position is yet, but he will need to get, I think, up amongst the leaders. I think if he can't do that, it's going to be a really tall order for him. But all in all, I think this is a value horse. And boy, when you consider most of the early runners have some vulnerability, American Promise is pretty intriguing from that perspective. And so this is one I've got my eye on for sure. And we'll just see how things move forward. But I think American Promise is slated and ready to make a statement in the Derby. Hopefully it'll be a positive one. So that's American Promise. We're going to continue on with our Derby contender profiles. We've got a few left, and then we'll move on to the Oaks. So we're going to do our elements of handicapping for both Derby and Oaks, form, class, speed, and pace. That will be coming probably the end of next week, so be on the lookout for that. And certainly if you do like content like this, please like and subscribe. And again, thanks so much to all of you who have come on board. Some of you have been very kind with your compliments. I appreciate that. Gunrunner in particular, I want to publicly thank you very much for the nice things you've had to say. And keep those comments coming. Love hearing from you guys. Much more in store, so be on the lookout for that. That's it from here. I'll talk to you soon, and until then, be well.